We are live on Facebook, and I have the pleasure of one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Australia side especially. Like you've been like one of my rocks here in Australia for so long, coming
Mm.
on here today. Hello, Erin. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Josh. How you going?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, mate.
All right.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, mate.
Honestly, like it's so refreshing to have somebody from North America here that I talk to regularly. Because I can
No.
be like, hey, this weird thing happened to me. Do you think that's weird too?
uh, my weirdness meter is pretty out there these days.
That's true. That's true. Maybe you're not a good judge.
Like, is that weird? No, that's not weird. Like,
No, that seems totally normal.
I do have to say, when you asked me yesterday, you said, "Hey, look, I've got this thing to share about parenting in particular. It's going to be maybe about some of the differences in the parenting styles that
Mm.
me and you and me and Lily are working with, and you and Ryan are working with, and me and you are working with. The fuck am I talking about?" Um,
Our child's
and
parents is totally
one thing
different
that
from
you
mine and
said though
Ryan's.
is you said, I'm going to quote you. I know you normally have some pretty out there people on your podcast, and a part of me was like, I try so hard to have it so the people are not as far out there as it could go because I'm trying to help communicate to the middle. So I had a laugh
Yeah,
when
no. I realized that that came across that way. That's I I meant more like people who were in the public eye who are like trying to put messages out there on the reg and like who are like more public people, whereas
so like
I'm
so
kind
like
of
that have bet more success in their field than me. I'm just joking. I'm just fucking around. I'm sorry.
I mean, look, Josh, you said it.
Damn it.
I hoisted. Um no, I mean like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Kind
I
of
do
like
actually. I was
yeah,
just wanted to tease you,
just
and I
giving
thought it'd
me
be
shit.
funny to do on camera.
Good, yeah, my cheeks are getting hot now.
But seriously, I love the idea that we're coming on. You and I have shared as deeply as possible, in my opinion, everything on our hearts and on our souls and on our minds over the course now of 20, not 20 years,
20 years? It feels
10
like
years,
no.
10 years almost, exactly, 10 years
Almost
almost.
10 years, yeah.
But it's like you're a person that means a lot to me. Your perspective means a lot to me. I love the fact that you've always been a little more grounded and also spiritual and open than other people. And so I'm just honored to have you on here today.
Thank you. That really means a lot because like throughout my early 20s and teens and everything, like I struggled so much with being grounded. I'm a Pisces and I was like just this super sensitive and emotional and like just like really taken by whatever was around me person. And like I think Ryan's definitely helped me a lot with being grounded because he's so grounded. Um, but like, yeah, it's actually really means a lot to have somebody say that I'm a grounded person because I worked so hard to do that.
Well, I very much mean that. So I want you to tell me about what inspiration you had to come on here to talk about parenting and to define any differences that maybe that were coming to your heart. What was the
Hmm.
inspiration for you to come on here today?
Well, it's really interesting because you're probably one of the few people that I would be like, hey, this thing happened and I want to talk about it. Like, because, hi, this is my daughter, Archie. You want to say hi? Nope, she's just destroying. Um, she's brought me this. Isn't it
No,
beautiful?
are you gonna eat it?
It looks like it's edible, doesn't it?
It does.
It looks like yellow cheese. It's actually like lemon scented Play-Doh.
Really?
Yeah, which seems a little dangerous for children. It's like I didn't
Make it,
know it was scented when I bought it, and I opened it and I was like,
let's make
okay,
it taste like candy. That'll sell.
yeah, yeah, and I was like, we don't eat this. She's like, okay,
I don't
and she
eat
hasn't. She's tried to feed it to me and to the dogs, but she hasn't ate it herself, so that's good.
it.
Win.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, yesterday I just realized like this is so funny because like I had this reaction within myself when I was chatting with you yesterday and I was saying, what do you guys need? Do you need any food? Are you being fed? And you were like, no, we're fine. We feed ourselves. We're totally, everything's really stress free. And I was like, well, if I blah blah blah, then I could have had a stress-free, blah 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 as well. I had this full-on reaction of like, oh, they have this going for them and they have this, and like they're in an isolation time. So of course, like Josh is home all the time. He can support, like, and it was totally, I think, natural because, like Ryan had to go back to work after 2 weeks.
Yep.
I had this full-on like trauma kind of thing happen. My niece was diagnosed with cancer the day that my daughter was born. And like my mom had to rush home to the States and oh sorry, just 1 second.
It's all right, you take your time. We've got kids. We're gonna get kids. You hear that? You know what it is? It's Arky. Erin and Arky. I'm talking to Erin on the screen right now. We are live, by the way. One of the audience. We're talking with her about parenting. You've always been a good father to me.
Another dad! Get out of it, snap!
Just be careful, okay? I don't want to kick over any of the stuff.
Yeah. Not a dad.
Just joking. I'm just joking. My friend Jody says hi, Luna. You say hi, Jody.
Here I am. Hi.
Hey.
Aki.
All right, we've got all the kids.
Aki.
Yeah, say hi to Arky.
She just had an argument with the dog and got nipped.
Aki.
But I am going to get you to chill out, okay, sweetie, just because we are going to get really deep into a subject now, but no problem you being here, but we're just going to be just nice and chill, okay? All right.
Oh, yeah. And like I had this full-on internal reaction to being like, oh, things are so easy for other people and they were really hard for me, and that kind of almost victim mentality. And like I just had to process it for a few hours and think about like, because it was kind of it was really at odds with what I actually feel, which is like I'm really excited for you guys and I'm really happy that you're having an easy time and that you're that things are low stress and beautiful, because that's what everybody wants.
Well, what I hear you saying, Erin, is that you could feel both aspects of self. And
absolutely,
that's what we've been talking about in these meditations and in these things, is an integrated self can have negative and positive and neutral perceptions all at the same time, right? But I think because our culture has been set up so that what I think and what I feel is the most important, and it's like there's no deviating from that, then we get stuck in one way of thinking and don't have that ability to see things from multiple perspectives. So the fact that you would even feel comfortable to come on and talk about your own experience of reactivity, then of it's self-inquiry. So why do I feel this way? And then fuck it, let's communicate this live on camera as well. I think it's very, very cool. I think that's like taking it all the way.
Yeah, well, I've just been really like inspired. Well, originally I was super inspired by, your friendship and the way that you interact with people on a regular basis with just kind of radical honesty and vulnerability. And, like I remember thinking, I just love being around Josh because I feel like I can always be honest with him. And it was one of the first times that I'd really ever, not to say like I can't be honest with most people, but like, it just felt safe.
Mommy, look.
I know, that's Josh. Hi, Josh. Uh-oh, there she goes.
There she goes.
There she goes. Yeah, and so it's been really inspirational to me that you model that, but then I'm also seeing it other places too, like I listen to I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I listen to like Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and he's a prominent kind of like super masculine guy who's just super vulnerable and honest, and like it's just really cool to see that, especially in men. I think like it's really great.
I mean, it's certainly not what we were taught to do, and so I think
Oh,
that it's still almost a shock. You're like, oh my God, he's being vulnerable and honest. I hope that in the future it's not as shocking though. Like the goal with anything is normalization, right?
yes, I know, baby.
Dinosaur.
Yeah, there's a dinosaur. Luna's got a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's this? Yeah, I agree. And I'm hoping, and I think like honestly sometimes that shock comes across to people who are being vulnerable as like that it's a negative reaction sometimes, and that like discourages people from being vulnerable, but like
Definitely, man. I think that the way that we automatically go to shame puts people on guard and defensive, right?
yeah.
So like if I said something and then someone was like, you're well fuck you basically, then it makes me not want to share because I'm scared if I remember in the past even like the idea was don't cry because someone's going to get mad at you too, right? And I even catch myself doing that with Luna Boom. So like sometimes like if it's like an exaggerated cry, I'm like, hey, could you stop that now? And then I'm like, wait, and Lily has to kind of give me a side eye sometimes. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. So
I know.
it's always a process, right? We did have a question here, and this is really interesting. My friend Ruth just came on and said, hey, ask how she would help children deal with the tragedy of a mass murder that just happened in Nova Scotia. A dude pretended to be a police officer and went around and killed 22 people. It was like a whole, like one of the probably the biggest single person versus others event that's ever happened in Nova Scotia. And that's kind of a big question to ask. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot because it's about
Whoa.
how would you tell your kids about that? Like, fuck, what would you say before I jump in?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like I listen to a lot of like I'm very interested in true crime and like the psychology behind it, and I guess I don't know. I have a 2-year-old, so I haven't necessarily had to get into like really explaining things to that depth as you do with like as kids get older. But like what I've noticed with explaining things to my daughter and my nephew and nieces and all of that, and is just to kind of take it down to a really basic level, like break things down, and like I guess it depends on how close you are to the tragedy as well, like, but I just think like breaking things down for kids to the most basic level of something like there was a guy who's very sick in the head.
That's what I said. That's what I said to Lily yesterday when she was asking
Yeah.
about it. I was like, oh, how do you describe mental illness? There was a person who was sick.
He's sick. And I think that's a really good way of modeling for children too, that mental health is just as important as physical health. Because like they are sick. It is and it's not a choice necessarily. I mean, for some people it is, but to do something that extreme is pretty sick, and I'm sure more details will come to light, but that's how I would say like that, he was sick, he was angry, and he took it out on other people, and it's a great way to model that, this isn't something that's acceptable.
I feel like that's exactly the truth. The only other thing I would add is that making sure to say to your child that they are safe right now. Because there's so much fear and so much pain in the airwaves and everything, just be like, okay, so first of all, that situation is finished now. We are safe right now. So we're talking about this retrospectively now. We're not talking about it as an immediate threat. That would probably be something, I think that probably would be a flimsy area, basically, if there was so much pain and fear for a child to suddenly feel threatened themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, I like kids get scared by, I mean, even surprising things. Like my daughter's terrified of the monitor in her room all of a sudden because it has a red light on it.
It's because Big Brother's watching.
That's true. And that's me. I'm Big Brother. I'm watching.
Isn't it funny? Some of the things I feel like you have to do, like you have to put boundaries or limitations or take away certain freedoms that you yourself wouldn't do for anybody else or for yourself, but for a kid, you're like, yo, you can't just watch 17 hours of that particular show and then eat chocolate. Like it's just such a funny. And then you yourself are like, but maybe I will later. So it's kind of a funny situation.
Exactly. But I'm not all.
To come back to the original subject though, was there anything
Yeah.
else that you wanted to say on those feelings of like, because again, Lily and I have a particularly fortunate situation, and it's like the word privilege actually comes to mind very strongly,
Yeah.
where we have that security net. And I'm like, I was gonna go back to work. I tried to go to work like 5 times, and Lily every time was like, don't. If you start to go
Mm,
to work, you're going to start to resent this whole situation. If you keep on doing your soul work, which is just what this is right now, if you keep on doing that and make that what you're doing, and we'll find a way to make that support us. So it was like, it was a really strong thing though, where where she was like, I had that thing of like, I need to do this thing, but I've never been happy when I do that thing, and but it's because of
mm,
the security and the safety net that we have that I can even do that. So that is true.
yeah.
There's no question there.
Yeah, and I think that's important to, acknowledge too, because and I mean, I know I'm privileged as well right now, especially in this COVID thing. Like I still have a job, Ryan still has a job. I'm able to work from home and be home with my daughter, and we have technology to keep her entertained, and you know all of those. So there's, I think it's really important to acknowledge privilege. I guess
No,
like
yeah. I don't feel bad for it though. I think that there's
no.
there's kind but that's a huge thing in this world right now, that there's this whole thing where you have to feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it. I feel
Mm,
lucky, and my immediate sense isn't now I shouldn't have privileges, that the world deserves that. So universal
yeah.
basic income, economic restructuring, redistribution, the world deserves to have the bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs sorted,
Hmm.
because as long as that bottom survival thing isn't sorted, we can't get into our emotional intelligence, and then ultimately we can't get into peak experiences, which is our spiritual connection. And
Absolutely.
so yes, I'm experiencing privilege. I don't feel bad about that, and at the same time, what I want to do is in any way possible change the whole fucking world so that everyone has that privilege, the privilege of safety, the privilege of food, the privilege of shelter. Like
Yeah,
that's all. Like basic security, I believe, is a given right for every person on this earth.
I agree. I agree. And it's like it's so doable.
So
You
doable.
know, I mean, like I'm not a politician, and I know things are get complicated when they get to that point. But I think like at the basic level, it is quite simple.
Yeah. And
You
yes,
know.
obviously there's logistics and everything like that. But at this point, because our monetary system is not based on goods and gold, it's based on speculation. In other words, like
Mm,
it's more what things could be that we're basing everything off of. I feel like I've always said, look, if we're going to go the untangible route, change it so it works. If we're going to go this route where it's all kind of ambiguous and there's
yeah.
mostly just numbers in the computer, then change it so it fucking works. If we're going to go back to something that involves the standard of gold or value in a material sense, then that's cool too. But if we're not doing that, and if we've decided we're going to go off the rails in a good way. There's no reason to
If
be
we're making it this shit up, let's
just
make
making
it
it
up
up.
so it works for
Fuck,
us.
exactly. Exactly.
That's so true. I'm
This is
just
even
looking down at. Sorry, what
at
would you
Heath.
say?
At Heath.
At Heath? What
So
about
in
Heath?
the comments, Heath has been trying to get our attention now for like many, 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 many comments, but I'm actually kind of
Oh,
enjoying just leaving him. Me and Erin have this wonderful friend named Heath, and I love Heath. You are a brother to me.
love Heath
You're
too.
also a trolling cunt. And so what's happening is we have this beautiful relationship where I post these very vulnerable shares on Facebook, and people are like, "Oh, that's really lovely," and then Heath is like, "Yeah, but you're a loser." And I think it's amazing because then I get to like slam him back, and then he gets to slam me back, and we have a very beautiful trolly relationship. And I'm allowed
Hmm.
to say cunts because I'm in Australia, but
Hmm.
because you are from America and I'm from Canada, it's kind of iffy as to whether I can say cunt still. Um, so what Heath said was just answer the question from earlier,
What's
dancing around the issue, typical politicians. But seriously, who the hell asked that kind of question? And then we have a regular realistic comment from Ruth that says, I like that you want to make them feel safe. So it's like in amongst Heath's like absolute ridiculousness and
hmm.
inappropriateness, there's also really genuine people speaking as well.
See, I'm not looking at any of these, so I'm just relying on you. I think I would get distracted.
It's probably best. All I want to say is fuck you, Heath. Um, And Lily chimed in to say, yes, so it works for everyone. Again, if we're going to have a fake system, if we're going to have a fake system that's not based on anything, why not just change the rules? I think it's actually, in a weird way, because we've gone away from materialistic values and we're in essentially a bubble of speculation, we have more of a chance to change the system because of that. That's the interesting part. Things are fuck withable. And
Yeah.
does that they could do it the wrong way. It could be that then they take it and they enslave humanity through an even shittier system. But come on, we're human beings. We could do better than that.
Well, you think so?
You would think.
It's actually interesting that you say that, because I had a bit of a mini breakdown last week talking to Ryan about this. I was like, they're confining us in our houses, and like, is this just the start of, and it's the same fears that I think everybody's having, is like, like you feel really claustrophobic in your house and you feel like you don't have control over what's going on right now, and you feel like this is a whole different paradigm than I've ever experienced, or that we've ever experienced. But then the thing that actually made me feel hugely better was that this shit has happened before. This isn't the first time that there's been like a global pandemic, for one, and also that people have been restricted to their house, that there's been an isolation order, like in I don't know exactly.
The last either. It won't be the last either. Like in 10 years.
It's you.
It's me.
It's you.
What? It's me.
It's amazing.
Yeah, her talking has been so clear lately.
And Heath just said, I love you, Josh, and I actually do love you. I love you like a lot, Heath. I can still troll you.
I love you too, Heath.
I love you a lot. Lou's in here too, and she said, I like listening to you both, and fuck yeah, fuck you, Heath. And and my good friend Sarah said, making me laugh, cunt. So there we go. We've got all kinds of perceptions going on.
You. I'm Mommy.
It is Mommy. And who's that? Is that Josh? Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Like, this isn't the first time this has happened. And well, like,
the interesting part is that just 100 years ago, the Spanish flu was one of the I've actually been using that as the strongest reference point, because when people are saying 5G created the virus and all these things, I'm like, whoa, ho, 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 the Black Death.
I mean, like, is that really so unreasonable though, Josh? 5G?
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that maybe there's unintended consequences of that too, but the fantasy that's being made about all these different things and all this different stuff, I'm like, man, just 100 years ago, before electricity was really a thing, we had that pandemic, the Spanish flu. It crashed all the economies, and that was the Great Depression. That was the whole thing. And then after that, that's when they created the current system that we're in right now too. And I think that it worked out all right for a while. Like, I actually think that this current form of capitalism is something that was meant to be. I don't think that it's supposed to be like, fuck this, like, fuck the system, it's the worst. It's like, actually, it's a pretty fucking good system. And there are serious blind spots, and there are serious unconsiderations for people in terms of that survival that we were talking about. But now we need to build upon what we have now to make something even better. And that's just the way it always works. And 100 years from now, whatever we create right now, if it's UBI, 100 years from now, it's going to look like fucking bullshit. And we're going to be like, oh, that doesn't work either. And then we'll switch that. So like you said, pandemics have happened, crises have happened, crises will happen. There is like, this is just the cycle of fucking life, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and even more recently, there have been like polio. When polio was like, they didn't know how to treat it. They didn't know what was fucking going on. They, they just told people to keep their kids home for, undetermined amount of time until they had the vaccination. I mean, like, I don't know exactly what happened, but I have read a bit on this. So it has happened. And that made me feel a lot better to think like that happened. We didn't come out of it with this horrible, like, totalitarian, like, it's not 1984, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's kind of got off topic of parenthood.
Well, I do want to say this though. A good friend of mine, someone I love very much, Danny, just said it's not the first pandemic, but it might be the first pandemic that has been manifested by sheer humanistic narcissism. I would actually like for Danny, if you could, to explain that a little bit further, because I think that some of the reactions have been narcissistic, but I don't think that it itself was created by that. Like, I think that it was I mean, unless you say that because eating at those wet markets fucked it all up or changed something, that's I can see how that could create it. But I don't think it's a manufactured thing really. It could be, but I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Then, oh, that's nice. Heath said, "Don't forget Hitler. He came after the Great Depression too." Heath, I hope every time me and Erin do these lives that you're just here the whole time. Like it feels so nice to have your reassuring presence.
He's
Uh,
actually super knowledgeable about history and shit. Like he is incredibly knowledgeable.
yeah. And also, I just want to say one thing as well to what Danny's comment. I actually think that we do experience this like pretty regularly. Like these things happen, pandemics, but this is actually the first time we're actually handling it better than normal. Because I feel like we have technology, we have the ability to connect, we have the ability to stay connected in a very, very deep way. I'm playing chess with like 20 people right now, your husband now included. And Danny said, okay, it's just a manifestation of the collective level of consciousness, regardless of where it came from. It shows the level. You can see that. But again, I think pandemics will happen in the future too. It's actually a part of human cycles. I believe that even in indigenous cultures, there would be what do you call it, like pandemics that have happened will happen in the future too. There's a lot of comments here, so I'm just gonna have to read these out so we don't get time. Okay. Lily comes on to say, any story can be detrimental stories about everyone out to get us. And the stories don't acknowledge the possibility other than what the government tells us. And stories that don't acknowledge. So well, I see you're saying that there's two different things. First of all, there's a massive story that the government's out to get us, and then there's a massive story that the government is giving us, and both of them have limitations. In other words, even the feeling that the government's trying to get us, that is a story, and it does have limitations. And the stories that we should believe everything the mainstream says, those are absolutely stories too. And that leaves openness.
Yeah. The story too, like either of them are quite, it's like what we were talking about before about holding two different narratives in your brain, you know, and they can both be slightly right and they can both be incredibly wrong because there's no one right answer. I think everything has a little bit of truth to it. And it's like, I mean, there might be one right answer that we just will never know, but it's like, there is this psychological thing around wanting the government to be the ones who know all the answers, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a parenthood thing. It's like they are, you know, there's a conspiracy, and there may be, like, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories that have come to light and have been true, but I think like there is like it's like this parent thing, like they know what's going on, and the truth might be that they're just panicking as much as we are. Like everybody's just people.
Well, especially because this particular illness can affect older people who typically are the power and money holders, right? So it actually wouldn't surprise me. I'm hoping that this has shocked people a little bit to make you feel like, oh shit, my mortality might be threatened. And in that moment, you open your heart a little. Like that's the best case scenario. It's probably not going to happen for a lot of people, but if even some people,
it's really interesting because I was just watching this video about all the protests in the States about COVID and like people wanting to have, you know, come out of isolation and all this, and some of the stuff they're saying is just like, whoa. So
I would not want to be in the United States. I'm so sorry. I know it's your homeland. I would not want to be there during this at all. And the amount of guns that people have, and the insistence that the government's trying to hurt us, and they're going to start to do martial law. They may create that by trying to start protests. If you come out and you're like with your guns, we're going to stop the government, we're going to stop the government has to send the army, and there's no other way around that. And then they're created the exact reality they're so fucking scared of, right?
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you react with fear and act on your fear, isn't it? You know, you kind of create the very thing that you're afraid of. And yeah, that's actually a huge lesson I've learned through parenting.
Oh, because like the way
and she brings it full circle.
Yeah, all the way. There we go. It's a complete story. Can you tell me some of those things that have happened before I go back into the lengthy amount of comments, which I'm amazed by? Thank you so much for everybody for commenting. But very quickly, could you explain some of those fears and how they
I guess like I didn't even realize I had fears of like these really basic fear things of like, yes, I know. That's your bear. like these really weird things. And it came through like I'm looking down because I wrote all these notes this morning because I'm apparently that kind of person now.
That's good.
So like I just was thinking about like how like when you are, you know, pregnant or about to have a kid or even have a newborn and all of that, so many people have like relish. And it seems like, and I even had this urge to do this yesterday when I got triggered, which is what made me think about it, is like this urge to like tell them like it'll get worse. Just you wait. Just you wait. And it's like, you'll see, or just wait. And it's like, that is so unhelpful. And I understand.
Do you know the amount of people that have said so many things, even
Yeah.
positive things to me, and I'm constantly just keeping a bit of a shield up, like, oh, we'll see.
Well, exactly. And like, you know, even like when I was pregnant, I had and I definitely don't hold any ill will towards anybody for doing this, because I totally understand the urge to do it. It's like this like perpetuating negative stereotypes. I had like so many women who were like telling me their really traumatic birth stories, and like, you know, their like horrible instances of when their kids were newborn. And like one of my friends had, you know, an abusive partner at the time, and she was telling me about how horrible he was when the baby was born. And I was like, oh my God. And it made me like really fearful about some certain things, you know, like one thing in particular was being induced. I had this horrible fear of being induced. And I mean, I ended up having to be induced. And I don't know if that was a manifestation on my part. But like, you know, Archie, when we were a bit over time, and like there was meconium in the placenta, and not the placenta. Anyways, there's meconium, however that works. And I ended up having to be induced, and it was a bit of a traumatic birth and all these things. But like in the end, it really was fine. And like, but I had all this fear around it. And then also, you know, like I had I think the silliest thing that I had fear around was kind of like not looking like a good mom.
I mean,
especially
that's not silly fear. Holy fuck shit. I can't even imagine how you people deal with that. I'm starting to catch it a little bit right now. In fact, we had a comment from a dear friend who said, language, Josh Coleman, you do have kids. That's not my prerogative, isn't to change my basic personality because of that. Thank you, Anisha, for saying that. I'm not trying to be a shit talker here, but that doesn't affect my language changes at all. However, that fear and that social judgment of moms in particular, like dads is a thing, but moms is like, I can't even.
Moms is so much more.
The shit that you guys get, and like just the judgment is, so you hate your kids at everything. Doesn't matter what you do.
So extreme.
And one person who says you hate your kids for this thinks the opposite. If you don't do that, then you hate your kids, or you do that. Like that, I think it's disgusting, to be honest, the way that people, and yet, as you said, there is a nature about it. We all have those internal desires to kind of pass on the bad news just in case, to be helpful. You're trying to be cautionary, right? But
yeah.
But the line between a cautionary tale and kind of just like creating shitty things for people is very thin. It can be thin.
Yeah, I agree. And it's perpetuating these negative stereotypes about parenting. And like, you know, even because I mean, you know, Ryan, he's just like this jokester, and his reaction to stressful situations is to make a lot of jokes. And my Midwestern Ohio reaction to him making a lot of jokes when I'm stressed is to get even more stressed and to lash out at him. And so, you know, we're a little bit you know, bad for each other in those situations sometimes, but it's good to acknowledge, because it is good to have a sense of humor, and you know, it's also good to take things seriously. So there's a bit of
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. There's a place for both places at the stage. Hey?
Exactly. So I've been trying really hard to have a bit more of a sense of humor in things, and I think that's a strength.
So again, I got to read these messages, or it's so what Lou came in to say. I think it hits us all as hard as this time I think it hits us all hard, as this time we thought our technology would prevent all of this. But the first time most generations alive have experienced it. That's a very good point. Like we didn't have polio, so this is our first shot at these particular things, and we assumed now that science and technology is so good, we won't experience this, which probably again is going to happen again. So it's good that we keep on guard. Again, Alicia said, language, Josh Coleman, you do have kids. I just want to again just express that I'm not actually intending to change much about my personality. I don't think that there is like obviously a good role model to me is someone who's just simply honest with themselves and honest with each other. So if that includes making mistakes, being frustrated, and saying fuck a bunch like that, because that's who I am, I'll continue doing that. And if ever that's weird in the future, sometimes it puts her off. Sometimes if I say fuck in front of her, she's like, hey, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Cool. And that's
well,
like,
and also there's a phenomenon. I'll just talk to that really quickly.
Yep.
There's a thing developmentally that my mother-in-law told me yesterday. She's a early childhood developmental, pretty much like guru. And she's been in that field for
nice.
however
Good person to be with, yeah.
30, 40 ever. And she was telling me that, there's a developmental thing where kids know that certain behaviors are okay in different situations. So, because I was concerned that she was sword fighting with her cousin. And I was like, oh, I don't want you to hurt him. And he was going, it's fine, I'm okay, because he's 6 and she's 2 and he's fine. But and I was going, oh, but you don't want to get in the habit of hurting people with swords. That's not a good thing.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. And my mother-in-law was like, she'll know that it's appropriate to do with him, but not to do with other kids, because other kids will tell her off for doing it. And that's part of socializing.
That sounds like the thing that we've stripped away from children too. Like, you can't hug, you can't play fight, you can't wrestle, and all that kind of stuff. Part of me is like, fuck, man. That if you don't want to, there better be very strong communication and social boundaries. That if you don't want to, don't make a kid do any of that shit. That's the only thing there. But if kids want to duke it out, and they're both agreeing that they want to duke it out, I say let them. Like, obviously don't create brain damage.
I used to have wrestling fights with my cousins all the time, and literally my family would gather around and cheer. It was like boy cousins too, and they were like, yeah, Erin's so tough, and I was like, yes. It's like 5 and he's like 10. I used to smash him.
Yeah,
but
I don't see anything wrong with that personally. However, consent culture is, do you consent to having this experience? And that is the first and foremost thing I think that we should teach children, consent culture. And once that's in place, we can really go any direction we want. We can do weird shit as long as all people are keen on it. Not forced consent, obviously, but real consent.
Yeah, well, it's like something I read the other day about the difference between ask and assume culture. So there's a culture there, and it comes in different family units of being able to ask because it's okay to say no in your family. Yeah. So it's okay
exactly. Yep. That's
exactly it. So, and then there's guess culture. So it's like that, trying to guess, is this going to be okay, or is this not going to be okay, because they don't feel like that person is comfortable saying no, or that they would be comfortable saying no.
Does that ever happen in intimate relationships?
No, I think it happens. There's a spider.
I'm actually just joking. I think that happens in almost every intimate relationship, and that those hidden expectations. It's okay. Those hidden expectations and the inability to get clear on what the other person wants and needs.
Yeah. No, sorry, I'm getting. You want to tell them? Yeah. Tell them there's a spider?
Yeah.
I want to see the spider.
See the spider?
Yeah.
Oh.
Give that girl.
Oh, and there's a spider.
Spider.
Yeah.
The spider.
Is it on the ceiling?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a daddy long legs though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a helpful spider.
What a cutie. Good lord.
Daddy, the spider.
Yeah, it's a helpful spider.
Yeah. He did you.
Yeah, he won't get you. He's not gonna get your arm. He's all the way on the ceiling.
Yeah.
So funny.
Do you think if he bites you, you'd be Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't remember what we were just talking about, but I guess just to wrap up, maybe we moved on to the subject, I forget, but just to wrap up, basically, consent culture is really important. not forcing kids to be ruffians if they're not, but I don't think discouraging them either makes much sense.
Yeah.
So, and Lou also said, and we're all experiencing a collective trauma. When it's a collective trauma, it's hard for people to help each other. And that's true. I mean, a lot of people are helping each other, which is awesome, but it's true. Like, it goes to show that if the trauma was worse, for example, if all the power shut down or if a tsunami smashed all of Sydney, it would be, I don't know. I think people would come together. I think people would come together. I think that the response to trauma is originally not helping each other. Then after a period of time, it actually leads us to helping each other more. I hope that that's the way progress works.
Well, I think that trauma reinforces really strong patterning. So like, you know, if you have a really strong,
brings out our conditions, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if you have a pattern of, you know, like being empathetic or you know, like things like that, that will show up. But if you don't, then maybe your patterning is like, I didn't have food as a kid, so my patterning is I have to hoard.
I would hate
You know,
to be
I mean, not saying I didn't have food, but like that happens when you don't have security as a child.
This is your spot, but like I would not want to be in America for anything like that goes down. Like it sucks to say, but like fuck.
Well, there's a lot of insecurity, and that comes down to what I was saying is like when you don't grow up with security in certain ways, and emotional security is one huge thing. You know, like not being able to speak your truth because you feel like you'll be judged, or like it's not a safe environment, or like there's a homogenous culture, so you don't feel like you're accepted, and it's then, you know, that comes out in trauma.
So like what you just said is profound. So Danny was saying, yeah, she likes what Lily's saying. It's not either or, it's both and. I was going to do a big talk about both and pretty soon because it's true. You can have both. You can have government conspiracy and you can also have government safety, and those two things can work at once. Lou says, true, Erin, and our truth evolves as we learn more too.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And as Danny said again, and that's the manifestation of the virus. It's narcissistic belief that there's only one way. There are there are two pillars, and there is a middle way, which again, that's what the Buddha was all about. And Heath came in with an actual comment. He said, why I mentioned Hitler is because people in power can take advantage of situations like this. Naomi Klein coined the phrase disaster capitalism. The people in power don't cause the disasters, but they take advantage of the situations, and that's absolutely true, Heath. I think that's like if we don't keep our eye on that particular ball, it's very, very possible for things to go sideways. And Hitler is an amazing encapsulation of that. I just want to say thanks also for making a comment that was helpful and not just being a trolling cunt. My good friend Al said, protesting for their right to die to make billionaires richer. Crazy times. Yeah, we don't want that. Lily said, awesome, Erin. It's amazing that ideas instilled in us before having children. It's one of the biggest cultural stories we're living with now. And it's so huge for moms and the birthing story we want to have. Scroll over. Man, these are beautiful, in-depth comments. Danny says, I love it. It seems natural that when we tend to hang out with parents who parent like us, but I'm noticing that already. But I also don't give any fucks, and I actually try to get kicks out of people judging me because she's a mama now too. Sarah says, and Josh Coleman being you rather than changing it to fit a parenting stereotype gives the rest of us permission to do and explore that. I'm very happy to hear that. And she said, I'm all for us moms exploring and supporting one another just to be themselves. And Alicia said, but what if your kids start swearing at an early age? I'm not really too worried about that, to be honest. Yeah, I just don't really care.
I think it depends on the culture too. You know, like Australia, swearing isn't as bad. It's culturally, you know. Oh, thank you.
It's because of the strong Christian background of
in North America.
And puritanical Christianity. There's been many different forms of Christianity, but puritanical Christians came to North America, and their whole thing was no swearing, no farting, no masturbating, no things that involve our animalistic self, because we're higher than that. I don't
Yeah.
think we are higher than that. I think those are all just a part of our systems, and they're valid and important parts of our systems. Farting and pooping and orgasming, those are all beautiful things. And when just saw Heath said a comment, I feel so validated. I'm very glad.
He's farting and pooping and masturbating all at once right now.
He was actually saying that because I
It's an
said thank you.
extravaganza.
So yeah, so Alicia, I see you're still watching. Yeah, so that's my theory on the whole thing is I don't think it actually matters that much, and the amount of energy we put into it mattering culturally is what we are experiencing right now. That is the backlash of those judgments and those pains and those restrictions. If you give a kid the freedom to swear, they might not even. Like a lot of times people swear because it was taboo. In other words, they say the F word's a bad word, and if you say it, you're a bad person. So you go, oh, I'll never say that then. And then as your self grows, you think, oh, I got this word I can use, and it's kind of like a sneaky word, and it's kind of a thing that I can use. And then you're just like, actually, F you, you know. But that
It's power.
it's power, but we've given it power as well, right?
Exactly. So if you like, I've noticed being a parent that you know, if I am very strongly saying, no, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, she's only 2, like I said. She knows that she can get a reaction out of me by doing that thing. And so when she wants my attention, especially right now because I'm working from home with her at home. Thank you. Yum. If she wants my attention, she'll go out the front door because she knows she'll get a reaction from me. So like, you know, I eliminate that temptation by shutting the front door because she can't open the deadlock. And I mean, not saying like they're the same thing, but if I
a good one.
Sorry?
Lily doesn't eat meat, and so Luna, for a long time, Luna was being like, well, I love meat, and watch, I'm gonna eat meat right here, and like, oh, mommy, look at me, I'm eating meat. And as sorry, you all good, girl? I was just saying,
Yeah.
so Lily doesn't eat meat, and so Luna was using that as a chip to say, well, I love meat, and then we actually stopped the story. So we're like, okay, meat is here or it's not here. Lily doesn't eat meat, but that doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Suddenly, recently, Luna doesn't like meat anymore, because what was happening is like in her, like she could if she wants. We're not saying she can't, but like it's really her choice. And now that it's not a taboo, now that it's not a thing that she's doing to antagonize her mother, she's less excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, well, because it doesn't have any power.
Exactly. So we should probably wrap up soon.
And you know, it's so interesting because I think it's all about flow. It's like what Lily was saying in one of her posts is like with kids especially, like you just have to go with their flow. I don't know. It's super simplistic.
Yeah,
but like,
how was the food, by the way?
That food that she just gave me?
Yeah.
That lemon scented Play-Doh?
Yeah.
Delicious.
Good.
I recommend it to everybody.
Would you feel like heading towards wrap up at this point? Okay. So I just want to say,
I mean, I pretty much,
So
I pretty much said everything that I wrote down.
Yeah, and Sarah just said a thing. As a mom, I've been exploring the idea that swear words are just words. As a mother in particular, I'm learning to place importance and intention in communication. We've actually started swearing more, not censoring ourselves to remove the taboo. So that's exactly what she's talking about. And Alicia says, farting, well, you can't help it. You can't help it, but you can have fun with it. I would love to just say again, thank you so much, Erin, for coming on. I feel like we had so much to say that we could have just kept going. So let's do it again.
Yes, I'd love to.
That feel good?
Thank you for having me on, Josh.
Would you like to have any closing statements? Because again, you came on here with a strong intention as what you want to speak with. Can I just give you 5 minutes right now to just say whatever you want, or 2 minutes, or whatever it is?
Yeah, I'll just talk. Yeah, basically, I don't even know. I don't have a platform. I just wanted to like come on and talk about how, you know, and be vulnerable about my inner process and about how, you know, like I have been being triggered by things more frequently recently, especially parenting things, potentially because I'm feeling very working from home, which I have a, you know, a kind of up and down, slightly demanding job from time to time. It has hills and valleys.
Job
And
and
a child.
child.
I'm basically doing two. What I keep saying is I'm doing two jobs at once.
You are.
And you know, sometimes I feel like I'm failing at work, and sometimes I feel like I'm failing at being a parent. And working on removing those narratives too, because like there's no, like, I'm not failing because my child watches 4 hours of TV in the day, you know, because it's just it's just meeting the needs of what I have to do right now.
Yeah,
like she's
exactly. Necessity is the mother of creation. If you are going to focus on work, I know that very well with Luna in particular. Like, you got to be like, girl, I need you to be doing anything else right now in order to have any modem of thought so I can actually work.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like my escape used to be, and I say escape, like it's not like I'm trying to escape my kid. It's more like just my time of being purely an adult and not having anybody depend on me for their livelihood and like living was going to work, you know, going into the office and talking to other adults and using my brain and using, you know, 4-syllable words and being, you know, being an adult. It's things that I'd worked towards in my career. And
acupuncture.
Gosh. You never stop impressing me. But you know, and that's now, you know, it always takes a second, like a back seat. If Arky needs me, I have to be there for her. But then it also means that, like, sometimes, like last night and this morning, which is meant to be my day off, I'm doing work because I had a presentation that I had to present to my director, which is really, really freaking annoying. But it's, you know, it's not something you want to do, but it's a necessity right now. And I think there's no clear answer other than just be kind to yourself. Yep. You know, like, be gentle, be kind to the people around you too, because the kids are having a hard time too. I mean, on Easter, our next door neighbor gave us Kinder eggs, like dropped them off on our front porch. So we stopped in and said thank you, and Arky ran straight in their house. And we stood in the living room, 1.5 meters apart, of course, and talked to them, and she didn't want to leave. And she just said to me on our walk, "Mommy, I got to see people. And I was like, it was heartbreaking because she doesn't know those people. They were just people that she got to see, and just any people. Yeah. And like, yeah. So I think, like, letting go of certain things and this is what everybody's saying, but it's really hard to internalize because you want to keep up the structures, you want to keep up your house being clean because that helps with mental health as well. You want to, you know, like, but what also helps with mental health is allowing yourself to actually truly let things go inside your own head. It's not just let your house be messy and deal with it. It's let your house be slightly messy, or however messy you feel is okay, and be okay with it.
Hey, that's a big lesson for me. Lily must be having a laugh right now. I fucking hate dirty houses.
I mean, I do too. I mean, and like, that probably comes to you as a surprise because our house is a bit messy.
But we have our areas that we keep clean. I see what you're saying. I know that you've got that one kind of junk room, but in general, I feel like the areas that you use are clean. I think that's the important part, right?
Yeah, and that room is clean now.
Is it?
It's actually like a usable room now.
I wouldn't know. I haven't visited you for months. I wouldn't know.
I know. And it's just like, that's actually been really, like, fun little wins, you know, like, we only had to do a little bit to get that room usable. It has a rug now. I have a rug.
A rug.
Right? That's an adult win for me.
I just want to say, as we wrap up here, Lily said, mom guilt is real. If we can break through that narrative, like you said, Erin, it frees us to be more present and happy with our children. Not to be perfect either. We're always going to have our moments, but yes, that is true. So Erin, I am going to wrap this up now. It's been almost an hour. I love you, and let's do this again soon. If there are any questions or comments that go after the thing and you want to type them in there, me or Erin will get back to you. And
thank you everyone for listening and watching us. It's really, really cool.
I love you heaps, Erin.
I love you too, Josh. Thank you.
Stay on for 1 second, okay?